We're going to party. We're going to have a little bit of a ranking. We're going to have a little bit of controversy. And maybe you all will hate my selections that I've picked for today's top 10. But let's go ahead and get started with none other than our number 10, Kaidon Salter. Now, Kaidon Salter, Liberty quarterback last season, has transferred to Colorado. And we all know what Shedeur Sanders did or did not accomplish at the University of Colorado with his father, Deion Primetime Sanders. They go out after Shedeur's departure and Travis Hunter's departure, and they go out and get Kaidon Salter from the transfer portal, one of the most sought-after quarterbacks, I believe, in the portal when you really look into, the hype around Salter last season. I think a lot of people loved his game. I think he has a very mature outlook on it. It feels like, from what I'm seeing, I haven't seen every interview or know everything that he's ever said, but it seems like he has a pretty good outlook on the game. It seems like he really wants to reach his ultimate goal of being in the pros, being in the NFL. And he spoke about that as to why he chose Colorado. It's Pat Shurmur, it's Deion, there's a lot of guys there that have been where he wants to go. I believe that is a quote from him. It's not just a quote from him. A lot of people say stuff like that, but no, like a big reason why he chose this school was, he thinks Colorado can get him to the NFL. Whether you agree with that, mileage may vary on that one. I think that this is a player, and you look at the quarterback battle, this is a player that I think is going to win that starting job. I think this is a player that it's his job to lose, but it's not a job that he can't lose. You know what I mean? I think Julian Lewis is a really good quarterback. And I think that he shows flashes of really, really high level of talent at times. If you watch the spring game highlights, or if you watch anything from Colorado's spring game, there are some moments that kind of, he just looks really green. And I know he's out there against, sometimes the number 1 defense, sometimes the number 2 defense. Sometimes he's got the 1 O-line in front of him. Sometimes he's got the 2-string O-line in there with him. So it's a little bit of inconsistency there from a blocking, catching, and defending standpoint. But I think that because of how green he's looked at times, in my opinion, I don't think that day one he'll be the starter at Colorado. I think that will be Kaidon Salter based on his experience. And just like I said, when you're watching the highlights overall, Kaidon Salter looks like, of course he does. The more day one ready quarterback. He's played 3 or 4 years in college already. So he's an impressive talent. I have him at my number 10 spot, mostly because he is unproven in this conference. And yet I think he is talented enough to really make a good showing for himself. Coming in at the number 9 spot, Connor Weigman. He is the new quarterback at Houston. And when you look at his career, you're in a tougher spot, I think, with this one, because in my opinion, Connor Weigman has a lot of talent. He, was the 8th best transfer QB in his class. He started 4 games as a true freshman, set the Aggies' true freshman single game record with 328 yards and, 4 touchdown passes against Ole Miss. He's a highly touted prospect from the time he was in high school, right? One of the highest ranked guys in his class at the high school level. But the question to me is, can he stay healthy for a whole season? This is a player who has really had some injury woes. A shoulder injury made him miss some time in early 2024 last season. And in 2023, he had that foot injury that happened in the fall. And this was after he had a really nice start to the year. So there's clearly talent there. Can he stay in the game, right? Not only for injury, but for actual talent reasons. Can Connor Weigman stay in the game? He was benched, I'm sure you all remember, from Marcel Reed against LSU this most recent season. He went 6 for 18 with 64 yards against LSU and averaged just 3.6 yards per play. They bench him. Marcel Reed comes in, and I believe they ended up to go on to win that game. Either way, I know Marcel Reed came in and showed really good flashes of being that guy for Texas A&M. And all of a sudden, Weigman was in the transfer portal, ends up at Houston. Curious to see how he does, if he can stay healthy. I think I have him at number 9 because of the fact that he has that SEC experience. He has the Texas A&M ties. There is clearly pedigree from the time he was a young man in high school to now. So I'm kind of banking on that a little bit. But the reason he falls so low is because I simply don't know if the man can stay healthy, right? And if he can't stay healthy, I don't think there's really a reason to have him very high on this list if he's not going to be on the field. You know what I mean, chat? Coming up at number 8, Devon Dampier. Devon Dampier transferred from New Mexico. I think every Arizona fan remembers Devon Dampier for his time at New Mexico, featuring last year's game against Arizona, where he played very well. Really made a good showing for himself in that game. Not only that, but he didn't make Luke Wysong look awesome, but the tandem of Devon Dampier and Luke Wysong certainly was effective, is what I'm trying to say. And he did it with his arm. He did it with his legs. His stats, I think, were slightly underwhelming. Through a couple too many interceptions last season, did Dampier. So you hope he cleans that up if you're, a Utah fan, because that's where he is going under the guide of Kyle Whittingham and company over there. I think he's going to be very well coached. He's going to have a great offensive system for him waiting on him. And I think he could prove himself. I really do. Devon Dampier is a very talented quarterback. Excited to see what he can do in this conference. And I kind of wanted to talk a little bit more about him because I remember, like I said, last year, that game against Arizona that he had looks very good. A lot of people, considering the way the offense looked last year, said, hey, if Noah Fifita walks out that door, if he transfers, which I know we all don't want to remember, but that was a very real possibility. It doesn't ever sound like it was truly on the table from a Fifita perspective. But a lot of people were saying if Fifita does go, Devon Dampier should be the guy that Arizona looks to bring in. Southwest ties. He played in Tucson last year against Arizona. So I like him as a quarterback. I think he's really talented. I think the dual threat ability of a Devon Dampier is unique. And I think coming up a level from New Mexico to Utah, I think will actually benefit him. I think he'll fit right in with that culture up there. But moving on to our number 7 hole spot, I have Jake Retzlaff of BYU. And when you talk about Jake Retzlaff, this is a guy who clearly has talent. He has a ton of support behind him in that BYU fan base. A lot of BYU Cougar fans love what Jake Retzlaff can bring to the table. And I think that I actually also feel that way. When I was previewing BYU versus Arizona last season, he was really one of the guys that stood out the most to me. I really felt like Jake Retzlaff is a very talented quarterback. I'm not quite sure his potential, like from a pro perspective, but from a college perspective, very effective quarterback. I've seen people having Jake Retzlaff as high as like 4 on some of their lists. He does not make it that high for me. The BYU quarterback falls at number 7 on my list, ahead of Devon Dampier, Connor Weigman, and Kaidon Salter. Moving on, though, to our 6th spot, Josh Hoover of TCU. Now, Josh Hoover had 3,900 passing yards last year, just 51 yards short of the 4,000 mark, 27 TDs, 11 interceptions last season. But TCU did not play a single ranked opponent. And that's going to change this year because they're going to play 3 teams that have made it to the CFP last season, including Arizona State, who, for better or worse, a lot of people are really high on. Hate to say that, but yeah, no, Josh Hoover is indeed in my 6th spot there on my list. I think that he is a very strong quarterback, highly talented, very high potential as well. And one thing that I noticed when I was going through that I had forgotten, and that maybe people at home had also forgotten, folks, Terry Shelton is on that team. And if you don't remember Terry Shelton, I would understand that. He is a high school receiver recruit from Texas who Arizona was very deep in on from a recruiting standpoint for a long time, until last season happened and everything looked awful and the offense looked horrid and old and just not good, flat out bad. And Arizona lost Terry Shelton's commitment to the University of Arizona. He moves on to TCU. The 6'4", 200 plus pound young freshman receiver will join the new also transfer targets like Jordan Dwyer and former Houston receiver Joseph Manjack. I'm high on Josh Hoover going into next year. I think that this is a quarterback who was linked to Tennessee in the offseason. And we all know how badly Tennessee wants to win. We all know how badly they wanted an elite top echelon quarterback in the country. But I really do think that is where Josh Hoover falls at number 6 on my list. And number 5, we're in the top 5 now, folks. Here we go. Who we got at number 5? Drum roll, please. Rocco Becht, Iowa State quarterback. Like another guy who, honestly, there are a lot of quarterbacks in this conference whom have very high potentials and very low floors and are somewhat in a gray area with their current projections, I think. And I think that's why when you do look at all the different top 10s of Big 12 quarterbacks right now across the nation, you get a lot of different answers. You get a lot of different mixes. I think the only, and we'll get to this in a little bit, the only guys that are kind of locked into that top 3 are a couple of guys. And the rest of them are pretty interchangeable based on the way you see their talent and the way you see their potential, the team around them, etc. A lot of these quarterbacks are pretty close in their talent, but also their potential. Rocco Becht is another one of those guys that could be as high as, I've seen him as high as 3. I've seen him as low as 8 or 9. You know what I mean? So like it's really at the end of the day, how do you feel about the potential of this player? I think Rocco Becht's slightly more proven than Josh Hoover. And I think that Rocco Becht is going to have another solid year next year and continue to improve. In the number 4 slot, Avery Johnson. Avery Johnson, one of, I feel like, maybe the king in this conference right now of that quarterback category that I was just describing. The quarterback that, you know, you've seen flashes and you can buy in one way or the other as to if you think that Avery Johnson is the dual threat QB that the Big 12 doesn't want to see, right? Like, or do you think Avery Johnson is mostly potential and not a lot of actual production? I think Avery Johnson is going to have an improved year this year. I think last year, a lot of people identified it as his breakout season, but I also think that last year wasn't his breakout season. I think that will be this year, right? I think that last year, your first full season as a starter, it was okay. It was fine. It was good. Whatever you want to call it, whatever. I really think Avery Johnson with his dual threat ability will be able to find more of a stride this season. I think Avery Johnson is an incredibly talented quarterback. I think that when you look at, you know, the names behind him on this list, I think he's more versatile than a Rocco Becht. Who's going to be third? Noah Fifita. All right, chat. Noah Fifita. Am I a homer? Am I biased? I don't know. You tell me. I think Noah Fifita, again, if we're talking as something falls in the office, I think we have some sort of, I don't know. The salespeople are crazy. Noah Fifita at the 3 spot. I think I have Noah Fifita at the 3 spot because of, again, we've seen Noah Fifita be one of the best QBs in this conference, lead Arizona to an Alamo Bowl, have some incredible moments in that Alamo Bowl game. The throw where he drops back gets absolutely leveled, says F it, T-Mac down there somewhere, and makes connection with Tyrone McMillan. Noah Fifita's potential is off the charts unbelievable, right? I know, again, this is his offensive coordinator, but Seth Doege is a guy that was recruiting Noah Fifita when he was at USC. Seth Doege is a guy that's been following Noah Fifita's career for way longer, way before Doege coming to Arizona was even a thought, a premise in the mind of Seth Doege. He joined our show and said, look, if Noah Fifita was 6'3", he'd be a top 3 prospect in the country at quarterback. In the country. Not in the conference, in the country. So I feel like Noah Fifita last year, and this is kind of the heart of what this stream, this show was all about today, chat, is how much did last season hurt Noah Fifita's general, the general opinion on Noah Fifita? I really feel as though last season you had him, you had him in an offense that was old, it was outdated, it was ineffective, it was slow developing everything, and there was no one that really succeeded in last year's offense. Noah Fifita was one of them, right? And he's the first to admit that. He's the first to say that last year was unacceptable. I got to be better. Like we all got to be better. And I think Noah Fifita, when you look at his skill set, his profile, what he did in 23, this is a guy that in an offense like what Seth Doege wants to run, up tempo, quick snaps, fast pace, looking to score. I think Noah Fifita is going to fit right in, folks. I really do. I think Noah Fifita is going to have this offense built around him and his strengths, not how can you work within this offense? How can we work our offense for you, Noah Fifita? And I think that's going to be the biggest difference. I miss Shane, guys. I think that's going to be the biggest difference next season for Noah Fifita is the offense being molded and built and crafted around his skill set and not whatever Dino Babers was running at Syracuse. You know what I mean? So I believe in Seth Doege. I believe in Noah Fifita. I think the receiving room is incredibly deep compared to last year. I think that while you lose Tyrone McMillan, top 10 NFL draft pick, greatest receiver in the school's history, maybe even, I think, the highest rated prospect in the school history as well by a fair margin, I still think the passing game is going to look better next year because the offense, again, I repeat, the offense last year was so ineffective, so bad, so outdated that even a top 10 pick in Tyrone McMillan couldn't shine up that turd. You know what I mean? So I think this year Noah Fifita has y'all must have forgot kind of season. And I think he reminds the Big 12 that he is one of the top talents in the conference. Whether he is the number 1 or number 4 or 5, I have him at my 3 on my list of top 10 quarterbacks entering play next season. Noah Fifita comes in at number 3. I think Noah Fifita is going to have a bounce back year under Seth Doege and cement himself as a top 3 quarterback in this conference, ladies and gentlemen. That moves me into our top 2. Sam Leavitt being one of them. You want to talk about guys that could have left this past summer for a bigger paycheck, maybe, but definitely for a bigger market. Sam Leavitt is one of those guys. You talk about guys that across the country, people look in this Big 12 conference and say, you know, that's a Heisman candidate quarterback. That's one of the best quarterbacks in the country. Sam Leavitt's that guy. You flip the coin. Sawyer Robertson is a quarterback for Baylor, widely regarded as one of the hottest QB prospects in 2025, at least in the conference. He's getting Heisman love, starting to get a little bit of draft love. And when I say Heisman love and draft love, I mean he's starting to get mentions in those articles of like preseason Heisman picks, preseason NFL draft stuff. So working under, Robertson working under Jake Spividal, the new OC at Baylor, for a second year is going to be huge. Spividal has a record of improving quarterbacks in his second year. Sawyer Robertson is going to be working with a guy that worked with Johnny Manziel for multiple years. Ever heard of that guy? Ever heard of Johnny Manziel? Yeah, I know you have. Geno Smith, he had that Tavon Austin team in West Virginia. Spividal was there. And Kyler Murray. And when you look at, and shout out to Locked On Baylor, they did a great breakdown of why and how he has improved quarterbacks year over year from year 1, where they might have, some success, to year 2, where they're one of the best quarterbacks in their conference. I think Robertson is going to experience a similar jump in year 2 under Spividal. And that is why he's in the top 2 on my list. And let's go ahead and reveal it. Chat, I hate to say, had to put Sam Leavitt at number 1. I absolutely hate it. It hurts my soul. I feel like I'm losing pride by the second, chat. But I want to be factual here. I want to try to be a little objective. And I feel like there's no way. There's just no way that you can say that any of these quarterbacks below number 1 is better than who I have at number 1. But that's my list, chat. I could have put him lower, but I would have been lying to you guys. And I don't want to lie to you guys. You're my closest friends and family here in this chat. And I appreciate each and every one of you for sticking in with me today.